Well, like in the next like 12 seconds, I have this conversation with myself. I'm like, well, I can't do anything about it. I either let it go or I start screaming for help here. Now, my scream at the time, I remember my scream. It was very sad. It was sad. It was a sad scream. I was like
one of those cat caught in the rain.
Yeah.
So Lita Ford, what did you move for her?
So I was actually her roadie for a couple of years. I remember it was kind of funny because like the first gig, and like this is where you could probably get a little bit of enjoyment at. That I have memories that spark story. And I just got to tell you this one story. So I get to my first gig at the Canyon Club in Los Angeles.
Oh yeah, which one? So there's two locations.
Okay, so the one out by the hills, by the Rich area.
So the one that's out in it's in Agora.
Agora.
That's where I used to live. Was right up there.
That's it. Yeah, that one. Right on the freeway, right off the freeway.
Yep, that's it. Yep.
So I'll never forget doing my first gig for Lita Ford. And I just get hooked up, with gigs through the management, Collier Entertainment was for Twisted Sister, Lita Ford, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Yeah. So I do my first gig and the original guitar tech shows up and he's got his tools and he's got his box and he's got his table and he's got everything. And I'm like, oh, fuck. I'm like, I don't want to get in the middle of this. I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to be the guy that says this, And he's like coming in hot and he's like setting up. And I'm like, bro, I'm kind of already set up here. You know what I mean? So then that's the day when I had my first gig with Lita, was the day that Lita decided to talk to the ex-roadie and say, hey, you're done at the gig.
Awkward.
Super awkward. So I'm just like, man, but he was a really, really nice guy. He wound up cracking us up with a bunch of jokes. He was really sweet. He brought his mom down. Like his mom was a part of the crew.
Oh God,
mom was there. Yeah, and he's generously a little bit more older gentleman than me. He's got mom, and I'm like, oh man, this is real weird, So anyway, throughout the years, about maybe a year or two, I did all the fly-ins with Lita Ford and everything like that. And she just, she's been going through some shit in her life, you know what I mean? I think it's publicly known, that she's been having a rough time and stuff like that. But I know she's gotten away from that kind of stuff and she's making a better life. I'll just never forget, we were just doing my job, helped her the gear, get the personal stuff to the room. And she just whips down an envelope and pulls out a bunch of bills and was like, here you go. And I was like, that doesn't ever happen. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, thank you. I do appreciate it. I learned in my life to stop, like personally, like stop, like my wife is like, stop saying no to the, tips. Stop saying no to when people are going to give you something. Stop, just take it. I'm like,
I've heard it too, but I don't know. It's not me a lot of the time.
I hear you. No, I totally feel you.
I'm like, let's go to the bar. I'll buy you. My first round's on me. And sure. Then, the second one's on you. And then sure. We all handshake at the end. And then maybe one day, of course, I need a favor. And it's like, oh yeah, no, dude, I owe you one. Remember I carried that amp for you. Like, yeah, that piece of shit. Yeah. All right, let's do it.
Yeah, for sure.
But she's right. You should bird in the hand.
Two in the bush,
Totally. Totally.
A couple of years before I roadie for her, I had auditioned for her as a guitar player. And management was like, just learn the guitar parts. So I just learned the guitar parts. And I come in and I'm just playing the guitar parts. And she's like, hey, why aren't you singing? I'm like, because I asked what I needed to know. And like, the management told me, here's learn the guitar part. So I think that's not really the reason why I didn't get the gig, but I think I was a little still too green for her at the moment. I wasn't really right for her. But something I've never told anybody, and feel free to
to pry.
Feel free to publish it if you wish, but
yeah,
I've never released it either. It's kind of one of these things. It's been too many years, so I mean, not a big deal. So I'll just never forget bringing in my gear bag. Put the gear bag in the back, and I filmed the audition. I was like that my whole life. I tried to secretly somehow film everything without breaking a point of comfort or personal stuff, right? You know what I mean?
So when you're recording it, you're obviously on the stage playing it. So where were you? Where's the location? Were you?
We're out in Long Island at a studio.
All right.
Just like a day studio, you know, she's doing auditions for a bunch of people.
But she's not on the stage with you.
She is. Yeah.
No
she's
kidding.
On stage. The whole band's on the stage. I think Rock is on drums. If his name Bobby Rock is on drums.
Here's Steve. I'm just gonna let him in.
Okay,
so you're all on the stage.
Yeah.
And then she's just kind of eyeballing you, basically.
Well, because we're playing together as a band and everything like that. We're playing together as a group.
Hey guys,
I'm trying to do my
Steve.
thing. What's up, Steve?
you getting a visual on me?
No, you got to click the video camera on the bottom.
Where is it? Oh wait, hold on.
So I'll introduce you guys, and then we'll go back to this because I think it's interesting. The audition process is kind of like.
And I did that for like every band. What's up, Steve?
What up, dude? How are you, brother?
I was watching some of your Facebook stuff. Pretty intrigued by some of these shenanigans you got going on.
Life's too short, right? You got to play all the stupid shit. All right, let me intro you guys, and then we can jump back into Lita Ford telling you suck.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly right. Steve Creep was Frank Hannon's tech with Tesla, opening for Def Leppard on the 2019 Hits Tour, and did the following American dates, which I did not write down, but there were some fucking American dates.
There were some American dates.
Then he worked for the Canadian band Moist. Which I looked up, and they're really big, man. I hadn't heard of them, but they're like the top 50 bands of Canada for like a 2-year period. While on the payroll at Maddie's place in Montreal, he's worked for Foreigner, Quiet Riot, the Beach Boys, and Lynyrd Skynyrd. Yeah. My second guest is Keith Robert Warcholak. He's worked for Twisted Sister, W.A.S.P, Lita Ford, Bernie Williams from the New York Yankee All Star. We got to I don't understand. Dilana, who I actually wrote a song with Dilana at one point, and Scotty Moore, Elvis Presley's guitar player. Fucking very cool. Obviously, very, 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 very cool. So, we were talking about him auditioning to play for Lita Ford as a guitar player, as a guy in the band, and I thought it was interesting because I haven't really heard. On the first one I aired, I don't know if you watched, it was with John Mayen, and he got the job working for Elton John. He performed in the kitchen at his friend's house, and then, something like that. And then he had to really go perform for Elton, and he did it like out of the country. He went somewhere in Europe and did it, and then he got the gig, and he's been with them since like 1992 or 4 or something. Crazy, yeah, killer gig, and he's been with them for Oof.
Did you ever hear the story about how Dana Strum got Randy Rhoads in Ozzy's band?
No.
So to make a long story short, there's a clip of Dana talking about it online, and he goes on for about 20 minutes. But in short, basically, Ozzy was blasted, and he was making Dana run around writing this list that he had been told to search. And Dana's like, no, I got the guy. But he wouldn't listen. So finally, he's belligerent. He takes him to the house, and Randy's not even in the room. He's playing like in another room, and he's just cranking his Marshall through. So Ozzy's like, yeah, he's hard, whatever. Let's just go. He takes him home all smashed, and he never even saw what Randy Rhoads looked like. Wow. So he just heard him through a kitchen. Ozzy just wouldn't let up on this list that his people, I guess, said, listen, you got to go through these guys. And I think Gary Moore was on the list and all that. And the guy's like, Dana was like, Gary Moore's phenomenal, but he's not the right guy. I got the guy. Trust me. And so, yeah, it was Dana. That's Dana's story.
I wonder if Brad Gillis is one of the top choices.
I don't know. I mean, as far Randy, maybe. I mean, as far as player wise, he's great, but I just didn't find he was a right vibe for the band.
Right. Sure. Yeah. He did
There's kind of a look and everything, Yeah. So what happened with Lita Ford?
We were chatting about stuff, and I had mentioned that I had worked for Lita Ford for a couple of years, but before that, prior to that, I was divulging a story about how I had filmed the audition secretly.
Okay. Yeah, you gotta watch this guy. That's what he was getting. You gotta watch this guy.
Yeah, because I like to keep memories of. I have
Well, at
a
the
lot
very
of
least,
first memories.
you have the story because somebody might not believe you.
Sure, exactly. And I've never released it. I'm not that type of person that needs to put that kind of stuff on social media or bloke about it or anything like that. But like, you know, I guess
it
it's
would be
great.
bad though. I mean, it's not like
No, and
get the
there was
fuck
no
off my
personal-
stage, you
Right.
worthless piece of shit or something.
No, we did like two, you know, we did the 2 or 3 main songs, and like I'll never forget seeing the manager, you know, from Steve Creep, the manager from Collier Entertainment.
Yeah.
He's sitting in the back. He's like, I go, why aren't I singing? When I asked you the other week, what do I have to do when I come in to play the songs? He goes, oh, just play guitar. I go, oh, that's great. So I came in knowing only the guitar parts, and like Lita Ford's like, why aren't you singing? I'm like, well, I don't know. Nobody said sing. You know, foolish of me. You know, but that's not the real reason why I got it. It just I wasn't the right fit at the time.
Well, 2020 hindsight too. I mean,
sure, of course.
What year was that?
Yeah, but it was a great experience. She was super nice about it, and great moment to at least capture and look back on in one day. But then a couple of years later, got to working with her. You know, after the many other gigs that I've been.
Did
doing.
she remember you?
Oh yeah, she was very, very, very cordial. She was very, very.
What
nice.
What year was the audition?
It's got to be 2007, 2006, 2008, because the Wild Street started 2008, 2009, and that was before I went from the little seed to beautiful flower, and so it was about that time.
Did Matt Starr ever show you his audition tape for W.A.S.P?
No.
Apparently, he didn't get the gig because he was bald.
No kidding.
Because back then, you needed an image, right? There wasn't too many. This was around the Crimson Idol, I believe. It was pretty early on.
You hairy guys think that's so funny. You fucking.
It worked for AC/DC, you know.
Well, AC/DC that'll work because they're a little more, W.A.S.P is a very hair-oriented, flamboyant band.
Sure.
You know? So.
I know. I don't know. I'm not sure even if Joel got through the complete beginning intro or anything like that. But I got a hell of a W.A.S.P story. So whenever you're ready to hear a W.A.S.P story,
good.
You
sure. When is there not a good time to hear a story about W.A.S.P? There's not many motherfuckers that I hate in the business, but he's the worst. He's
You said he owes you money or some shit?
Oh man, does he owe me money? So my first Twisted Europe gig was about 2006 or so, something like that. So we fly out to my first European gig with Twisted. I've been working with Twisted for many years before that, but they had a bunch of revolving guys and scenarios and situations why they would take guys across and why they wouldn't. So things were getting a little serious. So I get involved. I finally get my first road trip to Bulgaria. So I get to Twisted Sister. I fly home on Sunday, and on Monday, Collier Entertainment's like, hey, you want to go back to Bulgaria? I'm like, yeah. Like when? He's like, Friday morning. I'm like, I'm in. I'm like, who is it for? He's like, W.A.S.P. I'm like, no. I'm like, this is gonna be hell. This is gonna be my test. So to try to wrap up a long story short, from what I remember, okay, me and the crew flew. East Coast crew flew to Bulgaria, management, et cetera. We were meeting the whole band and everybody like that from LA. So everybody's coming. So they decided to ship all the main gear, the main props, the main electronics, everything main, stripped down shows for 2 shows only, Bulgaria and Istanbul, Turkey. And then we're flying to England to pick up the stage set, the bike, the pyro, everything like that. We're going to get
the
everything
other stuff.
we're going to get everything in England and start the tour and go crazy from there. So we do these 2 stripped down gigs. I'm like, all right, good. Give me a chance to get warmed up. First gig.
And you're you're guitar teching, or you're doing a little bit
I'm
of
guitar teching. I'm guitar teching, bass teching, and there's not many crew. There's maybe a drum tech and me and management. Yeah. That's about it. So we get to the first gig, and they all forgot to bring their power adapters, European power adapters for their wireless units. So now I have nothing to plug them in for wireless. Now you have an 80s metal glam band, blah, 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 who has to be wireless because you have to be wireless, even with the circumstances. the scenarios, the conditions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm like, all right. So like we're in Bulgaria on a farm. I've got no Radio Shacks. I got nowhere to go. Got nothing to do, right? So they're like, okay, this is how we're going to do it. Believe it or not, Doug, the guitar player, was actually pretty smart. He's like, this is how you do it. You wire batteries in series. You take 2 batteries, you split a female input conditioner or a cable, split it and wire it to 2 batteries, plug it into the wireless, and it's going. The problem is it only lasts for like 2 or 3 songs. I mean, the wireless is burning.
It's going to burn. Yeah.
Super duper fast. So this is my first problem. Now I've got a case of batteries like this big in front of me. And now I have to change them during the middle of songs. I have to change them in the middle of drum solos. I got to change them. It's getting a little crazy here. So we run out of batteries. We ran out of about 62 batteries in about 6 songs. It was disgusting. I mean, I'm like changing them. I'm watching like the things die.
Yeah.
Maybe 8 songs, maybe 10 songs out of a 20-song set.
Is the signal going dead like as the song's going?
Everything's dropping. I'll never forget running out. I'm like, I'm out of batteries. Okay. So I'm in all black. I'm doing the job. I know how to work. I know how to roadie. I know how to be conscious of the show. I run a 1,000-foot guitar cable from here all the way squared out to the front of the stage. And he's in the middle of some song, like probably, I don't know the songs, Crimson. He's doing something slow and dark and everything like that. And he's got no guitar. So I'm like, here's a guitar cable. And I plug it in. And now he's got guitar. Oh boy, that was a bad idea. He ripped me a new asshole after that show for that. Okay. So
that's like a dog like biting you for saving it from drowning.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt about it. You know, so like while this is all happening on the first gig in Istanbul, you know, we get through the bullshit. Bulgaria. We get to the second gig in Istanbul, and it's a Sunday, religious holiday in Istanbul. Nothing's open. Nobody will talk to you. Nobody will help you or anything. I've got nothing. I've got no power for the delay pedals. I got no power for the wireless units. We got 100 batteries. So here I go throughout the whole set. I turn around at one point of the song. I think it's like LOVE machine. And I turn around, I look that way and I go, oh, the fucking Marshall blew up on fucking stage. So I'm like, you motherfucker. I'm like, I got other things to worry about. I can't worry about this fire right now. Right? So we're doing this, we're doing that, get to the drum solo. This is when I couldn't believe my eyes. I'm changing the batteries for Doug and the bass players' wireless units. And for some reason, Blackie Lawless just fists me right in the back of the leg, like as hard as he could. And I turn around and I look at the guitar player, the bass player, Blackie, and the manager of Collier. And I look at everybody. I'm like, and he's like, it's not my unit, it's their units. I go, that's what I'm doing. Right. So now all this, you know, like this is like my first like big European 6-month road trip. I'm about to cash in. I'm like one of the best in the business. I'm dedicated. I'm going to make it work. I'm going to make everything happen every night. If you give me the fucking tools to do it. Right. So all I knew is that we were jumping down to the vans to get to the airport. We were going to fly from like, I think we were flying from like Istanbul to Italy to England, and then we were going to take off. I get in the caravan, and the manager's like, "Hey, anybody get a pen?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got a pen. Here you go." Signing my life away. Little did I know that this was the ink that was sending me home. He's like, "Blackie thinks you're a good guy, but he's sending you home." I'm like, "You motherfucker!" I'm like, "This isn't my fault." Like I tried everything to make this whole gig work. I mean, I knew what I was up against with Blackie Lawless, but I was like, man, you're getting rid of the wrong person. They sent me on a wild goose chase trying to get home. Didn't get. But
you know, once you get home and you think back about it, you can rest knowing that the next guy is not going to have any better fate than you did.
Oh, and they can
throw the blame. Yeah, they can blame everybody they want, but it's going to the same results. You know.
Sure. That was my. I think it was a 72-hour WASP tour that I was on. And,
I'd say it was short. I was just there.
Maybe 73 hours, you know. But I get home, I start calling everybody. They're like, yo, what's up? Where are you at in Europe? I'm like, I'm home in Long Island.
Right. Oh, this is when you're still out east. Yeah.
Yeah.
How many Transformers do you have now for the year? I got a case of them here, man. I overkill. I bring like 5 of them.
I'm good with them now. Yeah. So yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy.
I had the opposite experience. Like I was more like Frank's hangout buddy. The guy's like the easiest person to get along with and to work for. Like, thank God he didn't have any Floyd Roses, so I didn't deal with that. He was playing only. He had his a few maestros on his SGs, but aside from that, there was no Floyd Roses. He ran a wire in all the arena, like old school, so it's all jacks, right? So as long as I made sure that he was in tune, I had no problems at all. It was crazy. You know, half the time we were in the arena.
No, go halftime in the arena.
Go ahead, Joel.
I was just saying, are they gearing up to do shows?
Yeah, as far as I know, they've got a couple booked already. I'm not going to be part of it, but they got a few coming up. Like I was hired just by Mitch LaFon is the I don't know if you know who he is.
I do.
Well known. Yeah, he's a well known writer here. Anyway, he called me up one day out of the blue, and he's like, "Hey, Frank Hannon needs a tech for the Def Leppard tour. Do you want to do it?" I said, "Well, I'm not really a guitar tech. You know, like I play music for a living." And I know a few things. I mean, I started as a drummer. When I met Keith, I was actually drumming in a band with him. And we played maybe a handful of shows together. So like that was my only experience with him at this point. But I called him and I asked him for advice and a few other people. But so I said, yeah, I'll do the Canadian dates. But I didn't even have a passport at this point. I didn't even have my birth certificate in order to get a passport. So I had to scramble hard. But I wasn't going to turn up something like that. I said, I'll dive in first and I'll figure out as I go, you know?
Yeah.
So then he put me in touch with Frank and we started talking. He said, look, it's just easy, man. I just need my guitars handed to me in tune and clean. And, you know, just don't be a mess. You know, he asked me if I had any substance abuse problems. I said, no, man, let's do it. You know? So then as
like the roadie rider
turkey on my rider.
Yeah. Roadie rider. Like, how do you get a job? It's like, don't smell like shit. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I got that.
It's pretty easy actually, when you think about it. And,
heroin good, heroin bad.
Right.
Well, yeah. Well, as the tour went on, he's like, do you want to do some American dates at the end of this? I'm like, well, I don't have my passport. I'm still waiting on it. I go, if I can get it in time, I'll commit to those too. So we ended up doing that. And halfway through that, he was asking me already about the tour after, which Keith and I were going to do something in Vegas for Kiss Night. He invited me, and then there was a whole roadblock there with me and my passport. But so yeah, in the end, halfway through the tour, they had a meeting, and Frank was in the cab. He was all upset, and he's like, "Oh man, they want to play. They want to take more time off. I want to gig more, and they want to downsize on the crew. So they want to have guys doing multiple things. So they were teaching the road manager how to do monitors. Like that's how they were scaling back. And I think they wanted one guy to do both guitar players or maybe divide it up somehow, you know, because when I was with them, each guy had their own tech and there was an assistant and a monitor, sound man, manager. It was a full crew, plus a lighting guy and a merch guy. So they were trying to find ways of cutting costs. And I was hired as a temp anyway, but it looked promising, like I was going to continue. And then they said, the budget, they're trying to cut it short. So I don't know what they're doing now, if they've got one guy doing multiple jobs. But let me tell you, Frank's an easy job, but it's still a big job because he likes his guitars. So he's like Rick Nielsen. He'll change guitars like almost every song or two. And he's got the double neck with the acoustic. So you got to be on him. You got to bring that acoustic on stage several times in the show, and he's got his theremin. I mean, you got to be hands on. So maybe the bass tech could share with the drum tech. I don't know how they're going to do it though.
Yeah, maybe you'll get a call.
Maybe I'm on good terms with him. I actually keep in touch with Jeff Keith more than anybody. We would go to baseball because he was a sports fan, so we go to baseball games and we stay in touch and we laugh about shit. I wish him a happy birthday and Merry Christmas and all that. And he's always the first to respond, you know.
It's very cordial of you, Steve.
Yeah. I'm Canadian, right?
He's Canadian.
Canadian. So what's this? We're talking about sports for a second. What the fuck did you do for Bernie Williams?
Oh man, what a crazy story. So like, you got to remember, like back in '97 when I was on my first tour out of high school, my buddy, I was in a Kiss tribute band at the time. My buddy would be put makeup on. He goes, dude, you know, there's this guy on the New York Yankees. He plays guitar in the dugout or the locker room. I'm like, no way. And I'm like half in the bag half the time. I'm young. I mean, I always love sports. I kind of grew up as a Met fan, so I didn't give a fuck about the Yankees at the time. And I'm like, yeah, years later, I realized it was Bernie Williams. And I had a buddy of mine who I used to tour manage for named Aaron Kanata. His father was Richie Kanata, who was every saxophone solo that you know from every famous Billy Joel song. That's Richie Kanata.
Oh, okay.
So I had a good rapport with him and his son. And so they're kind of like, they're kind of this high-end A+ like New York City, like kind of like crew of musicians that are like unbeatable, you know? So when Bernie Williams was having a band put together, obviously Richie got the gig with a bunch of other guys, very, very, very big hitters in New York City. So I got the call and they're like, hey, you want to come down and roadie for Bernie Williams? I'm like, well, yeah, of course. So there was only like this one gig. It was in the Bronx, no less, of course. And a great little side story. I remember bringing a baseball because I thought I'd never see him again. So I only did one gig with him. At the time, I was only doing one gig. And I figured if I'm not going to see him again, maybe I can get him to sign a baseball, you know? Every kid wants their baseball signed by 100%. A major league MVP. You know what I mean? MVP, let alone All Star, let alone World Championship. You know, and real solid guy. I mean, non-controversial. He's got no problems in this guy's life. So, long story short, I get into this gig with him, and it's kind of unique and weird because, like, he's not a crazy ruckus rock star. You know, he's not very, very high demand. Yet at times, you know, just based on him not being a 20, 30-year musician, there were times where a lot of things I had to figure out and kind of work with him and kind of just like ease his mind by saying, hey, look, that's really not going to work. This situation's not going to work. You know, this thing right here in this place right here, this effect, this box or whatever you bring in it, it's not going to work. So
sometimes a less experienced boss can be, you know, it can be a headache sometimes.
Challenging, right?
Because you're taking orders from somebody who doesn't know what he's doing.
Right. You know? Now I'm in a position
where
trying to help him.
Or is he playing his own stuff?
So Bernie Williams put out a couple great albums. Okay. So like it's a total mixture of rock and roll, samba, jazz, blues, Boricua kind of music, you know, the whole thing, the Latin groove, the American groove, the blues groove. He's got it all. Now, let me tell you something. This guy is probably one of the best guitar players in the world. And like half the population knows it. You know, it's so weird to see this like guy that I idolized as a superstar. Like here I am, I'm like working with him and he's just being a real cordial, very, very cordial, just great guitar player, just great, solid. He knew how to jam. He knew how to improvise the whole 9 yards. And it was kind of funny. It was kind of cute because like it was a 9-piece band and a 1 roadie. So we always joked around that, well, there's 9 guys on the field and 1 bat boy. You know, so it's kind of a cute little story.
Yeah.
But he would tell us some really, really great stories about Steinbrenner and kind of like things that no fans would really ever know about the Yankees, old Yankees, new Yankees. You know, we sat there, you know, I wound up doing about 18 gigs with him over a couple of years because unfortunately Bernie wasn't a tour kind of band, you know. Boy, did I ever want to do a tour with him, but it wasn't. It was kind of like the metropolitan New York area, you know, kind of hoity-toity gigs, etc.
Well, it's less headaches for you, less traveling, so it's pretty light. Great. You know, it's light. Yeah.
Did you tell him you didn't want to hear his stories because you like the Mets and you give a shit?
No, at this point, I was kind of converting over to a Yankee because, like, to me as a kid, like, you know, Mets were like Kiss, Yankees were like Led Zeppelin. You know what I mean? So I was kind of like, I was going the ways of the dark side with the Yankees as it is.
I got a couple buddies who they're so hardcore Met fan. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No,
they wouldn't take the gig probably.
Sure. No, I feel you.
Yeah.
Well, as a Montrealer, I liked the Mets too because Gary Carter went there.
Oh yeah. Gary Carter.
Yeah. I actually had a Mets helmet when I was a kid. Like, yeah.
You know, a couple of unique stories about the Bernie thing is like me and Aaron Kanata was a singer for the band and we just kind of the young ones. And we kind of put this plan together. We're like, okay, at this gig, we're going to bring a bunch of mitts with us and balls. And we're going to go to dinner. And after dinner, we're going to say to each other, hey, Aaron, you want to have a catch outside? Aaron's like, yeah, you want to go throw a ball around? And then exactly what we targeted, exactly what we set out to do happened. Bernie goes, huh? Oh, in his Boricua accent. And he goes, oh,
Yeah.
are you guys going to have a catch? Are you going to have a catch right now? I'm like, yeah, do you want to join us? He's like, you have a mitt? I'm like, yeah, I got a fucking mitt. Right. So now we're outside in the parking lot having a fucking catch with a New York Yankee. I'm like, I'm fucking incredible. I'm like, this is the best thing ever.
It's like that. You ever see that Sunny in Philadelphia episode where they go,
Totally.
was it Chase Utley or whatever? Getting all smashed,
Totally.
and the players are like, what's this?
Yeah,
That's how
We got to organize a world tour, man.
totally.
Maybe that's the deal. You pull people up from the audience and you play catch.
Exactly. Hey, you get them in their element. You know what I'm saying? But he's
Really cool. I want to hear his music now. Maybe I'll look it up.
No, there's a couple great tracks. Very good music. Yeah. One last story. I'll stop taking up all the mic. But this one great.
We go for whatever.
Yeah. So I had this on the first gig. I got that ball signed. Remember on the first gig, I got this ball.
Yeah.
So the ball went missing for 4 or 5 months.
Did the guy from W.A.S.P steal your ball?
No, retribution.
Yeah.
So I get it back and I go, long story short, I have a baseball that's every gig that we did with Bernie. Because Bernie one day he was like, hey, where's that gig ball? We turned it into the gig ball. So he would sign it and date it. So there's 18 Bernie Williams signatures on one baseball. I don't think nobody in the world has a New York Yankee item
with that many
baseball item.
That's super fun. I love it.
It's super fun. Yeah.
My only
That's
music.
it. You've got it.
Oh yeah, I could show it to you. I'll bring it down.
Yeah, we'll see it in a bit. I think that's super neat, man. I love it.
Hold on. Yeah, I'll go get it.
My only my music crossover with sports guys was I had a PK Subban experience.
Okay.
Where when he was with the Habs.
So he had a restaurant out by me in LA.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's called Soups.
Yeah. You see, he does. He's still a legend here in Montreal, even though he's no longer here. His face is on the hospital about 30 feet high. It's crazy.
Nice, dude. That's awesome.
So you can see the ball. In fact, here, I'll take it out. I'll do a little close up.
Like 18 autographs.
All the signatures, all Bernie Williams with the dates on it of every gig.
I love it.
Funny.
It's great. Great. Right.
How did you two meet up? How did you guys meet one another?
Do you want to do this, Keith?
Oh my God. I'm going to miss out. I'm going to miss some information here, but it's gotta be.
It's the Dee Snider thing.
Right, but
it was the Christmas party. I think was the first time.
Party. That was our first gig. That was our first gig together.
I think that was our first gig together.
Okay,
we did a handful, but that was our first.
It's got to be about 2000.
Yeah,
2001. Exactly. So I remember specifically. It was very interesting. I was living in Long Island. You're living in Montreal.
Yeah.
Matt and
Chad
are living in Connecticut. Yeah. And at the time we were in a band called
The Flames.
The Flames, right. So, once again, I'm the newbie, I'm kind of the young kid and I knew Matt from, circumstance with things when I was a young kid as well. And I just never forget our first gig was playing for Dee Snider at the Mohegan Sun, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that was where the party was.
Christmas party.
Right.
And I think at that point I had already known Dee. I definitely knew Dee. I wasn't working for Twisted right at that moment, but shortly after that I started working for Twisted. But yeah, that was our first gig with the Christmas party at Dee Snider. And then
what brought Matt to asking you to play? Because we were a trio. I'd done a tour or two with Matt as a trio.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a unique thing because I know you guys were very interested in only being a trio, but I guess me at the time, me and Matt's relationship, it was kind of like kind of maybe quasi.
He couldn't play leads too. I maybe wanted a lead player.
Sure, yeah. So throw the lead guy in, and I learned a lot playing with the Flames. I think it was the first time I started realizing that there were people who were going to make music hard on me, and
right.
It was interesting to see them go, no, that's not right. I think you need to do it again, or let's do it again. Or better yet, when my parents would go out for 4 or 5 days to the casino, these guys would show up at my fucking house all the fucking gear goes in, all the fucking the couches, the TVs, everything goes in the garage, and the band sets up, and we're playing for hours on end, just destroying people's ears, and et cetera, et cetera. But it was the first time.
Does Joel? Do you know Matt Starr by any chance?
I don't think so. No.
He's Ace Frehley's current drummer. He played with Mr. Big for a little while, but back then he was. I think him and Chad made this. It was supposed to be lighthearted fun band, and he's playing guitar and he's singing. So I got the gig because something happened with his drummer, and he would like pay my tickets out on the bus to go to Connecticut to play these tours. But anyway, Matt ended up moving to LA, and now he's playing with Ace Frehley and stuff. But back then he was just a singer guitar player in that band. But he'd been a drummer long before that. I think it was just kind of like a fun side thing. But the band ended up sounding really cool. So it
did. One of our greater accomplishments was kind of almost beating Def Leppard at their own game. We did 3 gigs in 24 hours rather than 3 gigs in, I think, 7 different countries or whatever they did. Right. But that was one of my favorite gigs. Is we woke up, we did a gig, I think, early in the morning, right, for the radio station, or was that the D gig?
No, I don't know.
So we did an early gig at like
that's 6, a blur. I remember it was exhausting, but it was fun.
Yeah, we did it, and we drove about 200 miles or 150 miles to do lunch gig, and then we drove about 300 miles or 250 to do like a night gig. It was great. 24
brutal
hours.
Though.
We packed it in. It was fucking amazing. And at those times, I mean, no cell phones, no beepers, no Facebook, no nothing.
No,
just
that's right.
Eye on the prize, eye on the fun, living in the fucking moment.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember, like, because we did play in New York City together, because I have photos of us in a bar in New York. And I'm trying to remember all the shows we did. The one that sticks out to me more than anything is the Dee Snider thing, because for obvious reasons. I stole Dee Snider's Santa hat that day.
You did. You did steal that. Yes.
He's got such a big head, it goes like over my head.
Yeah.
Like it's like wearing a mask.
Where was the Christmas party?
At the Mohegan Sun.
Yeah, the casino. It's a casino out in Connecticut.
And Sebastian Bach and Leif Garrett were the other guests.
That's right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we shared the green room with both of them.
Yeah.
It was
and we're in true rock and roll form. We're just like, I think we may have asked Leif Garrett a couple uncomfortable questions. I think because we had already started
Leif
drinking.
was ready to rock. But Leif was ready to rock and roll. He's like, here's my hotel. Let's go smash a hotel room.
He was ready to rock and roll. Yeah.
Yeah. But Sebastian Bach was like a Canadian David Lee Roth, he would just.
I'll tell you a great story. Speaking of Sebastian Bach, when I was playing with Jesse Camp in 1998, 1999, we happened to go see Motley Crue. And I know it was in November in New York City at not Roseland. I think that's what it was called, Roseland? No, not Roseland.
Roseland's a venue for
Beacon.
sure.
Beacon
Okay.
For sure. Beacon Theater.
All right.
I remember it was Jesse's fucking birthday, and Motley Crue threw him a birthday party over at MTV, and then we all go to see Motley Crue over at the Beacon. And now I'll never forget being in the hallway between Sebastian Bach and Dave the Snake Snabo. Am I saying that right?
Sabo.
Sabo.
So I'm in the middle of these two fucking guys, and it's like the first time they've seen each other since Skid Row's broken up.
Oh, you told me this.
And Sebastian's like, "Hey, what's up, Dave?" And Dave is like, "What's up, Sebastian? Harder." And then Sebastian's like, "Harder." And Dave is like, "Harder than that one." And I'm like, I can't believe I'm in the fucking middle of this right now. And that's all they fucking said. And then that was the it. They just said hello 6 times and went back and forth, hit each other without giving each other black eyes. And I'm just like, I'm literally in the middle. Like,
well, what year is this? The initial
98. It's got to be 98.
Wasn't that like Sabo, the reason why he's not in the band? Didn't he say something about his mother or some crap and something he couldn't take back?
Well, you can't insult mom,
No, you leave that out.
Insult mom. Don't talk about my mother like that.
Snake talk shit to Sebastian Bach's mom?
No, Sebastian said something about Sable's mother.
Oh. Yeah. Snake's a good guy, dude. His stories are fucking amazing.
Oh, I'm sure.
Amazing. Sure. I'm trying to get him on here. I've texted him a couple times. He hasn't.
What about you, Joel? Have you ever played or tech? Do you have any crazy stories or?
No, I'm boring. So what's the story? You gave me some notes. I'm going through the notes. So I saved George Thorogood's guitars, but he doesn't know.
He doesn't know. He doesn't know. He has no clue.
What did you do?
Wait, are you ready for this?
You're
This
like a
one
guitar
deserves-
missionary?
This is one of my favorite like Jedi Sith stories I've ever had in my life. Okay. So I'm going to take a swig.
Yeah, swig away.
Cheers to the Golden Knights. They got to get a win tonight, boys. Let's go. Get a win.
All right.
We know the Habs ain't getting any.
So me and Joel were talking earlier. Joel knows about Mates. Steve, do you remember me working for Mates? The cartage company in LA, basically a rock and roll cartage company. Yeah. Drive the trucks around, pick up all the A+ stars gear, deliver to wherever they need to be, do whatever you got to do. Bigger gigs, whatever, et cetera, et cetera. So there's one gig, you know, the wise asses that were working the desk that day, they're like, oh, just send Keith out alone. Yeah, no problem. He's on like a 16-foot, you know, box truck. And this fucking, you know, the gate that comes out is broken every other Tuesday and a half. I figured today was my lucky day. I thought Wednesday was a good lucky day. So we showed up to a gig off of Wilshire somewhere, not the Wilshire Theater, but somewhere, one of these places. And I'm delivering in this 16-foot box truck 2 major, huge, like guitar vaults, right? Now, I don't go snooping in there, but I'm going to take a safe spot here, safe say, and say his White Falcon's in there.
Okay.
There's no doubt. Okay.
All right.
So we got one that's about 800 pounds. I got one that's about 500 pounds. Well, the 500-pound one, I seem to get it onto the gate. Okay. And, you know, I'm all by myself. There's no stop bar. There's no like safety bar so that something rolls off this thing. It's just a metal gate. So I lock all the wheels. I got to hold on to the gate, put the lever down and get it down safely, lift it up myself, get in there and get the first one in there. I figure that's the 500-pound one. I get to the next one. Now I'm not even thinking about it. I figured, you know what? Yeah, today's a good day. It's going well so far. I get it onto the metal gate, and the gate just goes. So it goes about a couple degrees down. And basically, if I decided to just sit back and go like this, it would have fell over, probably ruined everything, probably hit the car about 6 feet away, maybe rolled into the street. It would have been a mess. But my Jedi instincts kick in, and thank God today's the day I'm wearing those rock and roll steel toe boots. Catch the lever. You know, it's a big guitar vault.
Yeah.
Big fucking
They weigh a
thing.
ton. They weigh a ton.
Yeah, if you don't know what it is out there, we're talking a big monstrosity of a vault here, right?
It holds probably about eight guitars, give or take.
Correct. And everything else that goes in.
And then everything else, those drawers that have like their strings and things, you know.
I just grab it and the thing falls, but it sticks on my foot. So thank God I got the steel toe on today. And I'm holding it. And now I'm like, well, like in the next like 12 seconds, I have this conversation with myself. I'm like, well, I can't do anything about it. I either let it go or I start screaming for help here. Now, my scream at the time, I remember my scream. It was very sad. It was sad. It was a sad scream. I was like
one of those cat caught in the rain.
Yeah, I'm just like screaming, and I look up like, you know, on Wilshire Boulevard. I look up in the air and I see this guy cleaning windows like eight levels up, and I'm like, he ain't helping me. And there's no one around. There's no local crew helping me. There's no Thorogood crew helping me. There's nobody helping me. I'm just on my own. It's like 9:15 in the morning, so it's not quite busy, and I'm just screaming at the bloody top of my lungs. Fortunately, fate would have it that about a gentleman about in his late 70s, early 80s come running over. Now, I said to myself, this guy ain't going to help this situation.
No.
Thank you for
He's 80 years old. How fast is he running over?
He's a limber. He's a limber at 70, 80. He's healthy. He's healthy, you know?
Right.
But thankfully, this young buck come around and like, he's like, what do you need us to do? What do you need us to do? So I got 2 guys. I'm like, just push that fucking case up as fast as you can. So now we get it onto the lip. I go hold it there so that I could make the mechanics bring it down safely and get it up there. So I thought to myself all these years, I said, you know, George, you don't know this, but I could have let your case go. I could have just let it go. I could have just not gave a fuck. I could have said, I could have said I'm more important than the job. I could have said whatever, but I'm a war machine. I'm a trooper. I'm a lifer. I held on to that motherfucker so bad. And I held on to it because I cared about those guitars. So fate would have it. I got the people of the Angels was sent down from above to help me make this happen. And boy, was I in a pissed off mood for the rest of the day.
Herculean strength, dude. Herculean strength.
It all kicked in there at that very moment. A quick little story. I won't make this one too long, but I'll never forget because, like, Eddie, when I was working for Twisted Sister, many years of Twisted Sister, crazy.
Yeah.
But Eddie's not the type of guy that wants you working on his guitars. I'm your guy. But he doesn't want you working on his guitars. Okay, no problem. I understand the relationship.
So does he work on them himself, or he has a guy at home or something?
He's got his guys. F.U. Tone, giving them a shout out.
So what happens on tour though? Like, does he want you to take it to a shop?
No, just restring, polish. Don't fuck up the intonation.
But if something goes wrong with it, then I guess you just got lucky.
I have no choice. I have no choice to dig in and make it happen. On this very day, in Hungary. We're back to Europe again on a fucking another holiday or some shit like that. And his Floyd Rose piece broke where the saddle is. And I've got no more left in the tank. I've got no more. So I'm like, I start calling a bunch of places in Hungary. They're like, no, we don't understand you. Click, 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 click. I'm the very last guy. He's like, yes, I think I have a few pieces. Come to shop. I go, all right, come to shop. I come. I'm coming.
I fucking love Twisted Sister.
I try to use this weight with people out there, but people in Hungary weren't giving two shits about Twisted Sister right now. I found this it was like the fifth guy I called. It's a Sunday again. And I get to this guy's shop and he starts pulling out the plastic like little cubicles of like all his tools. And I'm like, stop. What is that? Oh, and he shows it to me. I go, that's the fucking piece. That's the saddle. That's the one that matches what I need right now. How much do you want? He goes, whatever. I go, take 3 times the amount. Here you go. Yeah. So, and then I didn't tell Eddie about that till the end of the show. He's like, he goes, well, you did that? I'm like, yeah, of course. I'm your guy. That's what I'm supposed to do.
You're paid to do that.
And he's like, because the WASP guy said you're a little bitch.
I got a bad reputation with WASP.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't have to bring that up again. I guess I'm just
please do.
I'm just bringing mean now.
I love it. I love the humor of it all.
I got a Canadian one since you wanted Joel's story. So I'm with STP and we're up in, I think it was Montreal, and the guy picks us up and he gets in. It's always the same. He goes, "Oh, nobody in the band's in here, huh?" And we're like, "No, dude, it's just the roadies." So he starts driving us to the gig. The gig's like some hockey place, and there's a bunch of cops. They're not rent cops. They're fucking real cops. And the street's blocked off and they got the barricades. And the guy pulls a passenger. It's just a white passenger van. He pulls it up to the guy and he goes, "International rock superstars, move the barricade." And I shit you not, all the cops scurried to move it and let us go through. And we're all kind of like, whoa. And I just remember laughing, like, if you said that shit in LA, they would have beat the fuck out of us.
Right.
You know?
And
then I asked him, I'm like, what the fuck is an international rock superstar? He's like, I just came up with it on the spot. You know, that's great, man.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So you talking about Eddie Van Halen. He's the only rock star to make you cry. Was that Tears of Joy or what's
Tears of Joy?
Tears of Joy. Yeah. What happened?
So once again, I'm working with mates, and I remember having kind of a quasi working relationship with Maddie Brock, which was his right hand man. And he would be coming to the warehouse a lot, picking stuff up, et cetera, and he'd give me a chance to let him chew his ear off about speakers and stuff like that. Maddie's a real in-depth tone guy, speakers, amps, tubes, yada, yada, yada. So, like, I think I just maybe set the right impression with him. Couple of months after that, after kind of knowing him for a while, I remember pulling up and I'm backing up into the dock at Mates. And I hear, like whistles, loud whistles, you know. And I look at I stop the truck. I'm like, what? You know, I'm trying to back up a truck here. I see this Porsche, you know, on the dock and everything like that. And I see Maddie Brooke and my two bosses. I can't remember their names. And I'm like, well, what? They're just like, stop the truck, get over here now. I'm like, all right, what did I do wrong today? So I jump up on the dock and I'm just like looking at them. And by the time I jump on the dock, they're like proud fathers. They're just looking at me like, I'm like, what's the rush? What's the fire? And like out of a movie, like out of a slow motion movie, the door from the Porsche opens up and Eddie gets out. He goes, "What's up, Keith?" I'm like,
Fucking
what?
Really?
And they're just sitting there and they're watching this because they get to talk to Eddie every day and I don't.
Right.
And they're just like sitting back, letting me enjoy this moment. And Eddie just comes up and he just bro hugs me and he just like, he gives me that confidence. He looks at me, he goes, "What's up, man? How are you, man?" I go, I'm like, you know, I couldn't believe I didn't even take a photo of it. You know, like every day everybody's got a camera. Like I didn't even think today, like after he died, I was like, wait a minute, you didn't get a photo of that? You fucking idiot. But he just sat there, you know, it took like a minute and it was real cordial. And Maddie and him, you know, jumped in the Porsche and started getting out of there. By the time I jumped back to the truck, my mind's racing a million miles an hour. And I'll never forget Maddie coming to the warehouse the next day. And he goes, "Hey, man, I just want you to know that, you know, Eddie and Matt start going past me as I'm backing the truck up." And Eddie goes, stop the car, roll down the window. He goes, honk.
Well, thanks for saving George's guitars.
Exactly. And he just looks at me and he's like, Keith, thumbs up, Keith, thumbs up. He's pointing at me. I'm like, fuck yeah. And Maddie was really nice. He was like, yeah, man, he made sure that I stopped and rolled down the window and just made sure that he sent you some love. So
that's super cool. All right, Keith. So another one here is you got to play with your idols. Who are your idols? Why are they your idols? And how did you get to know these guys?
Well, you know, I'll save Dee for later, but Dee is one of my idols, of course. But one of my idols that I got to play with as a young buck was Sam Yaffa from Hanoi Rocks and Todd Youth. Todd Youth was in Murphy's Law. He was in Glenn Campbell. He was in Danzig. He played for Ace Frehley. It was a unique thing when I was playing for Jesse Camp. I mean, it's a very, very, very unique story. That's a whole nother episode. But, you know, he basically assembles this band of Sam Yaffa, Todd Youth, Joe Rizzo from New York City, great punk rock and roll drummer from New York City. And I'm just kind of like, I'm young. I'm like 18, 19 years old, scratching my head going, how is this happening? You know? I mean, I am a really, really extremely big Hanoi Rocks fan. I am a very, very, very big fan of all music from Sweden, Norway, and Finland. So it was kind of unique, you know, like I got into the situation with Jesse, you know, and it kind of like, I wasn't, you know, Jesse was a compulsive liar first, by the way. Okay. So like, I didn't believe that I was actually going to be in this band. So that one day, Sam called me. Sammy, he goes, "Hey, just come over and let's just play the set together." You know, we played the album together. I remember playing the album, and a couple weeks later, after the album was released, the manager for Jesse Camp, Charlie Steller from Tin Pan Apple. Charlie Steller was responsible for the Fat Boys, DJ Scribble, Michael Monroe. He had his hand on a lot of cool things, especially via MTV. And I'll never forget in his accent, he went from a European accent to a straight American accent and fooled me and said, he goes, "I won the lottery and I was basically welcomed into the band. But my audition was with Sammy, and I didn't know that. I brought over a shit ton of pot, shit ton of hash. I was just trying to have fun. I was late for the thing. And, you know, I was just trying to have fun, enjoying the moment. But little did I know that was kind of my audition, because I guess between Jesse and Charlie, nobody had the music sense to see or sense out if I was actually legit enough to be in this band. But it's kind of unique because, I mean, like Zeppelin, like the Beatles, like Kiss, Hanoi is very, very, very extremely special to me. And to, my favorite show, I think the greatest rock and roll show that ever existed, especially the one that I was never at, is Hanoi Rocks at the London Marquee. It's on YouTube. I urge everyone to go watch it. It's the most energetic rock and roll, punk rock and roll show ever. I become Hercules when I think about it. And Sammy is just like this adorable, amazing bass player who was just really captive and just a really big impression on me as a little kid. And just by the time I'm 19, I'm on stage with him, and it still means a lot to me. I think I've pissed him off actually in the past year, and I reached out to him recently and I kind of sent him a message and an email. I won't tell you why I pissed him off, but
did you blame Steve?
I blame Steve. I did. I blame Steve and Blackie Lawless. But
it's definitely Blackie Lawless' fault.
Being a little candid, but that was really a big impression on me playing with those guys, especially as a young kid.
So I got a question I like to ask people. So I was trying to come up with a podcast, and my buddy has a 5th grade kid, and she said, you need to ask your guests when they first felt famous. So bear in mind, it's from a 5th grader. So the way I think it looks, the idea of it all is, when was the first time you remember looking out at an audience or whatever happenstance we're talking about, and you were like, fuck yeah. What's the incidents that comes to mind?
For me, I was 21 in 94, and my band, I was in a drummer in a grunge band called Pushing Up Daisies. And we had songs on what is MTV here is called Much Music in Canada.
Sure. Yeah.
And we were touring the country, and we had our song on heavy rotation, and every show was great. I think seeing myself on TV was probably in the 90s. Nowadays, anybody could be on YouTube or whatever. But like to get on TV in the 90s.
Clearly.
Yeah, clearly. But
like and subscribe, everybody.
Yeah.
So we were having a moment. Sorry.
Yeah, they created the internet just so I could remain on TV. But that was the first time I felt good. You're playing to about 4,000 people on the street, and it was pretty cool.
It's very cool.
Now I'm like a big fish in a small pond because I play a lot of pubs, and it's, the drunks love me. Sober people with their life.
As a drunk, I appreciate that.
You already appreciate me?
I feel comfortable saying I like you already.
All right.
The first time I felt famous was this very unique gig. I was on tour with Jesse Camp in 1998, maybe 99. We were opening up for In Sync.
Oh, so I brought this up in the last one. I worked for In Sync for 5 minutes.
Did you really? That's great.
I was a lighting guy for In Sync for
no shit.
Yeah.
So it was like, this crazy tour, but we weren't like on the main stage. We were like at the Pepsi stage, like before the gates opened up, kind of opening up. I think it was Jesse Camp and the Street Kids and Mandy Moore on the Pepsi stage.
So the guy I interviewed last night was the tour manager on that gig, dude. He was the Mandy Moore.
That's crazy. I would love to talk to him.
Dude, that was last night.
I can't wait to hear that.
It was great. He's awesome. Anyway,
I remember we were in Greenville, North Carolina, or Greenville, South Carolina. I get them all mixed up. So we come out to the show. I mean, I'm looking all Andy McCoy, the big hat, the black and white pants, the leather, the flying V. The band's looking glam as everything. But there's this. You got to understand, an NSYNC crowd is mom and daughter, or mom and the 3 daughters, or mom and the daughters and the neighbor's daughters.
right.
There's no guys.
All right.
Okay. So they're just fucking screaming at the top of their lungs. Like, I'll never forget this one gig. They were crazy. They're ripping at our clothes. My hat gone missing. My nice John Bonham leather cowboy hat's gone missing. And I couldn't hear anything on stage. Like, the pitch of the volume of the noise got so loud, I just kind of looked at the guitar player. I stopped playing. I go, I can't even hear anything right now. So at that moment, I said to myself, oh my God, I think I know what it felt like for the first and only time of my life to feel like a fucking Beatle. Like I
was going to say, that's like being the Beatles on Sullivan or on Shea Stadium.
Oh yeah, it was the best thing in the world. It was the best thing in the world. Fortunately, towards the end of the gig, I was able to trade a bunch of bracelets and cowboy hats for a bunch of weed and everything like that. So it worked out real well with the moms.
So actually, I got some clothes from that gig. Hold on real quick. You're gonna like,
wow. Clothes. I can't wait to see this.
Wait, there's
got any NSYNC t-shirts?
You know, speaking of, while he's over there, we were reprimanded by the NSYNC management. Oh, here he comes. Let's see, what has he got here?
So this is one of Justin's outfits from NSYNC.
Wow.
Oh, sweet.
It's his Gucci.
That's hilarious.
I think it's Gucci. Let's see here.
I was kidding. I was going to say.
No, Dolce and Gabbana. Dolce and Gabbana.
Oh, fancy. Are we fancy?
Holy shit.
Yeah, we got reprimanded by NSYNC's management because after the NSYNC gigs, you know, we're 5 rock and rollers, young, amped up rock and rollers that just want to go out and mingle with women and fun and have some fun. So we go out there and we're just kind of like selling CDs, and because that's another story, by the way. Jesse Camp shipped 300,000 CDs, and in their first 2 weeks they sold 3,000.
Ooh.
Wow.
And I'll never forget, like me and Jesse go to do a signing in Hicksville Mall out where I lived, and I figured that was when I thought I got famous. I was like, oh my God, me and Jesse, we're going to do sign autographs. There's like thousands of people waiting to get our autographs. I just couldn't believe it. It was the weirdest thing in the world. But long story short, I see the manager take the call. He's like, how many records? And he like, that was it. And the next year and a half, it's like after the show at every gig, we're like selling CDs to try to get rid of this shit. But it got to the point where we were causing such havoc that we were actually stealing away a very high percentage of sales from NSYNC's merch at the end of the night.
Oh,
so
wow.
They were like, hey, listen, if you guys don't get the hell out of here after your gig, you're gone off the tour. So management did what they had to do.
We were with the Cranberries in Las Vegas, your land, and we went out for the night, and Fergal's the drummer, a great guy. And when you're on your bridal, what do you call when you're going to get married, you go party, the chicks go do their thing.
Sure.
And they had a list of stuff to do that night. And one of them was to take a picture with the Rockstar. And they handed the drummer of the Cranberries the camera to take a photo with one of the roadies. They didn't know who he was. And I'm looking like, I gotta tell them. And he's like, no. I'm all, we're in the US. Nobody knows who your band is. No one gives shit about you. And he's like, no, seriously, do not tell her. I'm like, oh God, I gotta tell her.
Well, you've seen that guy, Eddie Van Halen's at a Tool show, and somebody asks, hey, he gives a camera to Eddie, thinking he's just some fucking old guy in the audience. Can you take a picture of me in front of the stage? And Eddie takes it, and he never tells him who he is.
I love it. There's a good one.
Now this guy's all over the internet. And he must know. He must have seen this.
He's basically a meme
he's like,
now.
What? I fucking yeah. He's a meme now. Exactly.
Yeah.
The fucking idiot who didn't know Eddie. You know.
There's a good one. It's with Matthew Broderick and Jerry Seinfeld, and the guy takes a picture with Matthew Broderick, and he doesn't know who Jerry Seinfeld is. So Jerry Seinfeld's in the back of the picture like this. It's fucking great, dude. Well, guys, I really appreciate it. That was super fun.
Yeah, man.
We'll have to all powwow. Let me know.
Yeah, it doesn't even seem like a podcast. Sounds like 3 geezers getting together, having a good time, man.
That's the hope. I don't know if it's good or not, but it was fun.
Shameless plug. I'm managing a online retail pro audio company, estudiostar.com and accessibles.com. And, over the year, everybody wanted to be an internet star. So I had everything they needed: interfaces, speakers, accessories, microphones.
That's cool.
And a little crazy. Yeah. So I've been very blessed.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for watching Party Like a Rockstar. If you're not already subscribed to the Facebook or YouTube channels, do it. We're also on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. The handle is Party of Stars. Thanks for watching. See you next time.